Good afternoon and welcome to, we have a joint meeting today between the Seneca County Industrial Development Agency, the Seneca County Economic Development Corporation, and the Seneca County Funding Corporation. This meeting at the end of March, really it's a joint sort of March and April meeting. What we'll do, we'll start out today with the Economic Development Corporation. We have a quorum, Tom Kine and myself present. So first item on the agenda is approval of the EDC meeting minutes, February 2nd. We had a copy of the meeting minutes in our packet. So a motion to approve.
So made.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Second item is the review of the EDC audit management letter posting CARES.
Okay, so we can go through this fairly efficiently. There's not a lot of activity in the EDC anymore, as you both know, since the cemetery operations were transferred over. The auditors did not find any deficiencies with the EDC. There have been no adjustments or modifications made. Total assets in the EDC for 2022 down a little bit from 2021. So total net assets was just about 148,000 as compared to 163,000 in 2021. That's largely due to the administrative expenses that are ongoing there, mostly the audit, CFO. Let me see any other highlights on the EDC. Nothing much to speak of, obviously no real income, although you will see on the statement of activities, there is a transaction with a $600,000 pass-through grant occurring to Seneca Dairy System, so that money came in and then it went back out, really not having any impact or net impact on the EDC statement. That's all I really think we need to point out at this point, unless either of you have any questions or anything you would like to add.
No, nothing. So therefore, I'd like to have a motion to approve the audit management letter and posting CARES.
So made.
I'll second. Kelly?
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Kine?
Yes.
Mr. Shipley, absent, motion carried.
Next item is the ABO measurement report.
So this is something that we do every year for each of the organizations. For the EDC, it just outlines what the mission statement is, and then the performance items that we evaluate on. So for 2022, the goal was really anecdotal instances of collaboration with local government. That's obviously kind of a broad thing, and we've talked about this before, and the IDA's obviously talked about this, but the big one being discussions and collaboration in regards to the redevelopment of the Willers Drug Treatment Campus, and anticipate that that may eventually ramp up and have more impact on the activity going through the EDC in the future. So that's really the one item of note on here. Any questions on that?
Fairly simple. So request a motion to approve the ABO measurement report.
So made.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Motion carried. Next item is review of the EDC long-term forecast.
So this we do twice a year when we go through the budget and when we go through the audit. The EDC, we always just look at the worst case, which is known revenues against budgeted expenses. Obviously, there really aren't any known revenues to speak of. We do put interest income in there. Hopefully in the years to come, that'll change and we'll have some new income streams. Otherwise, you can see our total expenditures as of our 2023 budget, just under $14,000. That we do, project some inflation in there over time. We project it out here until 2028. So as of the 2023 budget, EDC is expected to have approximately $134,000 in cash available at the end of the year. That number is expected to dwindle to about $58,000 by 2028, provided that nothing changes with the EDC operations. That's just a FYI. We'll provide another one for you in the fall.
Okay. Any other business? No executive session, so could I have a motion to adjourn?
So made.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. So we're adjourned with the Seneca County Economic Development Corporation portion of the joint meeting.
Kelly, you want to get the two guest dialed in, and we'll get started on the rest of the agenda.
Next up is the IDA. First item on the agenda, everyone should have received a copy of the meeting minutes from our last meeting on February 2nd. Any corrections, changes, modifications? Hearing none, I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Hi, Peter, this
Anyone
is Kelly
opposed?
from the IDA. I'm just calling you into the meeting.
Motion carried.
Perfect, Kelly, thank you.
Just 1 second.
And next on the agenda is a review of the IDA annual audit, single audit, management letter, and posting to Paris.
Okay, so we'll spend a little more time on this one than on the EDC audit. The final draft that has been provided to you does have an error that we found this morning. The auditors have since sent a correction, but that was
Hi, Andy, this is Kelly
like
from
10 minutes
IDA.
before the
I'm just
meeting
calling into the
started, so
meeting.
I'll note what the correction is.
Just 1 second.
And then we can do approval, you know, pending that change.
Can we both hear
So,
us?
just to go through a couple of the highlights.
Okay.
Our net position at the end of 2022 was approximately 3.789 million as compared to 4.426 million at the end of 2021. We've talked about this numerous times, but that's largely due to the transfer of capital assets from the IDA to the county. So we saw obviously during the 2021 year, there was a decrease from 2020 because of the transfer of the sewer line, and then between 2021 and 22 was the transfer of the fire training facility, which is contributing to that difference that you're seeing. We did have, so actually looking at statement 1 and statement 2, which is our statement of net position and statement of revenues and expenses. Statement of net position just shows you where we are. So we're actually, total current assets are actually up for the IDA. So our cash, both unrestricted and restricted, which is largely our revolving loan fund, have actually increased. So again, on the cash side, things are trending in the right direction. Really the changes again are related to those capital asset transfers. As you see, the total capital assets in 2022, we're ending the year with 242,000 in capital assets as opposed to just over $1 million the previous year. The first notation I want to make is actually on statement 2, so that's where the error occurred. We added a line, so previously on the draft audit, there was a miscellaneous line under operating expenses that was just over 700,000. That's where they had attributed the loss of the capital assets from the transfer of the fire training facility and then the sewer line in 2021. They broke that out into an additional line, which you'll see now is loss on disposal of capital assets. So the numbers for 2022 are correct. 2021 number in that particular line item in that column should have been 687,900. That's the amount that's attributed to the transfer of the sewer line. And then of course that impacts the net position end of year for 2021, which should be 4.426 million instead of 5.144 million. So that change has been made, but again, the 2022 numbers are accurate. You'll see our agency fees have gone up between the 2 years. That's largely timing of projects, but obviously, you know, we continue to see good project flow through the IDA, so things are again positive on the cash side, and we're finally now having a more realistic view of where we stand financially now that we're getting some of these assets transferred. And then again, statement 3 will require correction in the 2021 column. And again, that's because of the error on the previous page carrying over. So here you'll see the operating loss for 2021 was incorrect. They had 312,000 as operating loss. It really should be just over $1 million in 2021, bringing the net cash provided by operating activities that year to 281,000 instead of the 400,000 that is listed there. Otherwise, the IDA audit went well. There were no material weaknesses or any modifications. You know, there was a clean opinion issued by the auditors. I'm happy to touch on anything else that anybody might have questions on, or if you feel like I left anything out, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, and I don't recall coming up with any accounting standard changes that are coming this year that would impact us that didn't get brought up. Was there anything the state?
No, so this year, the new one that was in effect was regarding leasing. So the way that you account for leases on the books, which really didn't impact our agency because we don't really have any leases per the standards. So there really weren't any considerable changes in regards to that.
Any questions from the board on this? Hearing none, I have a motion to approve the annual audit, single audit, management letter, and posting.
Oh, actually, we didn't do the single audit
We
yet,
didn't do the
sorry.
single
Let me
audit.
go through that one.
Just-
So this is the audit that we have to do because our revolving loan fund received federal awards. So we're required to do this annually. Really, it's very short. Again, everything checked out. Our total federal assistance that we received for this was about $784,000. The cash on hand in the loan fund as of right now is $851,000. Again, these numbers are also in the full IDA audit report. This is just the standalone for the RLF. With the cash that we have on hand in the loan fund and the outstanding loans receivable, our loan fund is approximately worth $1.162 million at the moment. And that's essentially the single audit, unless anyone has questions about that report. And again, slow me down if I'm going too fast, but you know, some of you have seen this stuff before, so I don't want to waste anyone's
A
time.
lot of numbers.
Yes, a lot of numbers.
And next year, if anyone's interested, just stop on in for the audit committee meetings and where we go over
Or
this.
if anybody wants to, so this year, you know, Ben Guthrie had questions before the committee meetings. I'm happy to go through this stuff with anybody in the office as well, if that's helpful to you.
A lot of information, especially if you're not used to seeing this. So, go back then. Motion to approve the annual audit, single audit, management letter, and posting to Paris.
So moved.
Second? Kelly?
Mr. Russo,
Yes.
Mr. Kine,
Yes.
Mr. Lot,
Yes.
Mr. Bruce Murray,
Yes.
Mr. Tom Murray,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley, Mr. Guthrie, Mr. Brownell, absent, motion carried.
Next item on the agenda is review of the long-term forecast.
Okay, so this we can go through, again, similar to the EDC, we review this twice a year. For the IDA, we show two different scenarios. So we show where we forecast $400,000 in income going into the future, which we found to be a relatively average prediction. And then we also do worst case. So we'll start with the $400,000 one. So you'll see the 2023 column shows what we've actually budgeted for the year. So we've budgeted approximately 1.48 in total operating revenues and approximately 581,000 in operating expenses. We're expected to have cash on hand, an increase in cash on hand bringing our total to 2.877 million by the end of 2023 if we stay on budget. Looking into the years ahead, you know, the $400,000 in predicted revenue is not enough to cover the total expenses that we project. So we would see cash losses under this scenario. However, it would still be relatively stable for the IDA. We would go down by 2029 to just over $2 million. So almost $800,000 decrease in cash over that period of time, if this is all we can bring. I do want to note the Del Lago rental income, that's the $100,000 that you see. The last payment for that is set to be 2024, meaning that, you know, we will need to make up that gap, obviously, with other agency fees or funding streams. But again, based on recent project activity, we believe that that's, you know, more than feasible. On the worst case side, so this is showing only known revenue against budgeted expenses. Obviously, this paints a little bit different picture. We do still have positive cash on hand through the 2029 period, but it would go down to $364,000 under this scenario. And again, this is showing, and actually this has one small error in it, so it shows the $100,000 payment in 2025, which should not be there. I believe it is 2024, that's the last year for that. So we would actually go down an additional $100,000 under this scenario, but again, you'll see, you know, we could have some very bad years and still manage to weather it with the way things are currently in the IDA finances. Any questions about either of these?
It shows, yeah, income is definitely a year-to-year.
And something that we're gonna maybe consider looking at in the future. So we've, for a while now, used that $400,000 of income as sort of our regular assumption. But we might reevaluate that and just see, is that really realistic? Should it be something different? Obviously, the worst case is kind of in some ways the more important one to look at, to know how long we could keep going if nothing else is coming in. But we want to make sure that we're giving you guys sort of an accurate picture of where we stand financially.
Thank you, Sarah. Next item is the APO measurement report.
So on this one, our measurements are a little different than the EDC. They're a little more concrete. So we've got, for 2022, two metrics. One being the number of projects supported with the amount of private capital that's leveraged, and then the second one is being the local jobs supported, both on the retention and the creation side. And so for 2022, the IDA supported 27 active projects, so that includes our pilots, our loans. You know, these are the projects that each have their own separate sheet in the Paris reporting system that becomes public information, and that's something, you know, that we have reviewed and we'll also have plans to discuss more in depth, likely at our May board meeting with you all. But those 27 projects this year have leveraged $590 million of private investment. They've retained 2,200 FTE jobs, 18.5 construction jobs, and then 836 jobs created. And some of these are understated because some of the projects that we still have that are active are projects that are difficult to track employment on. So like the outlet mall, you know, those are all sort of employees and contractors of the separate stores. So we don't have a great picture on total employment there. And then a couple of the mixed use projects that the board has approved over the years, the Waterloo Downtown Properties, Madison HNJ, you know, those ones are also difficult to track because on the commercial side, when they're leasing to tenants, you know, the tenants aren't the ones that are reporting to us. So what we've shown here is what we can actually track and have backup data for, but there is, you know, additional job creation that we're not fully able to quantify. Questions on this?
And, yeah, and on the back is the governance certification. If anyone has any questions on that. If not, have a motion to approve the ABO measurement report. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No, motion carried. Next, we have two related inducement projects, both Lodi Solar Project 1 and Lodi 2 Solar Project.
Yep, so these are for the same property parcel. They're each 5 megawatts. They're considered separate projects because of the way that the state looks at community solar and the
Same ownership and
limits.
same tax parcel?
Yeah, same tax parcel. So we've got the developers on the line. We have Peter McAuliffe and Andy Welch on the line, and they can actually speak to you all, present a little bit about the projects, answer any questions you have.
We're gonna divide those into two benefit programs. Pilot.
Yes.
Yep.
Why are we doing that?
Hey everyone, this is Peter McAuliffe. Can everyone hear me okay?
No, I can't.
Just a second.
Hold on, we're gonna turn up the
Perfect.
volume.
What's that?
We're gonna turn up the volume a little.
Side by side, technicality.
How's this?
That's better.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so first off, just want to thank Sarah, all your help getting us on the agenda today, and members of the board. Appreciate you kind of hearing out our projects and our presentation today. So again, my name is Peter McAuliffe. I am the Associate Director of Project Development at RIC. We have Andy Welch on the line as well, who's a Senior Project Manager who's focused on these two Lodi projects in particular. Just a little background about RIC. Again, those are the wholly owned, the two project companies, Lodi PV LLC, as well as Lodi 2 PV LLC, are wholly owned by RIC. We are a New York-based developer. These are our first projects in Seneca County, but we do have a handful of projects that we have developed and are currently developed in central New York, in Onondaga, Oswego County, in western New York, Chautauqua, Cattaraugus County, and then in the North Country, we have some sites in Jefferson and St. Lawrence as well. So again, we're here today to present our applications for financial assistance, as well as our request for the IDA to also be the lead agency on seeker for these sites. I think just to be efficient with everyone's time, although they are two separate projects, we can kind of give the quick overview all together, again, because they are side by side. So I will toss it to Andy to give you a little more detail on the actual projects.
Okay, thanks, Pete. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So just to go some further detail as to what Pete started to explain, these are two projects specifically, and we'll run into this a lot because we have certain naming conventions that we use. It's actually Lodi Solar and Lodi 2 Solar are the names of the two, and each respectively owned by the project entities that Pete mentioned, Lodi PV and Lodi 2 PV LLCs. These are two projects that are separate, but they are adjoining. They are located on Route 414 in the town of Lodi. We're calling the address 8999. It's a new address that's going to have to be created, but that's numerically where it sits. They're both on land that's to be leased from from Robert and Susan Stack. As I say, while they are separate, they do share one driveway, so there'll be one new cut into Route 414. But otherwise, the projects have separate fences. They have separate electrical interconnects, and we will handle them as two separate entities. They do you will find why we put in here is that because of the similarities between them, beyond that, it just makes sense for you to simultaneously review them. And that's what we have done. And then, they are, as we mentioned, community solar projects. I know that the board is familiar with such entities as having previously dealt with a project by another applicant within the town of Lodi. The specifics on our projects, each of them is a 5 megawatt community solar project that occupies about 29 acres each, for a total of just under 60 acres on the 97-acre parcel. That land is currently used for farming. It has low visibility neighboring properties. It's screened on 3 sides by trees, and the remaining side is Route 414. Our photovoltaic panels are going to be on single-axis trackers, meaning that they will move following the path of the sun from east to west every day to go along with it. We have the tracking rows are going to be about, we design on 22-foot centers. The height of at the maximum point is going to be under 12 feet. It may actually be closer to 10, but we'll call it under 12 at this point of the planning. We believe that the impacts of the project will be minimal. There are no wetlands or endangered species that will be impacted, and we've actually been in communication with the state and federal permitting agencies to confirm that position. The equipment itself generates very little noise and would not be expected to be heard from outside of the fence line or the fence lines. The panels are designed to minimize any glare and not be a hazard to any surrounding areas, in particularly including 414. I have earlier discussed both of these projects with the town supervisor of Lodi, Kyle Barnett. Kyle confirmed that the town does not require a site plan approval for such a project, as he also stated they don't have any zoning restrictions to it that would apply to it. And in fact, he didn't voice any concerns about the project at all during our call. Talked as well with Rich Suardoff, the CEO for Lodi, who also confirmed there are no local permits before we get into the construction electrical permit phase. So because there are no jurisdictional decisions issued by the town of Lodi, that's why we're asking the IDA to become the lead agency under SECRA. And then we're asking you today to take all necessary and related actions to begin that process. I think as we go along, we are confident, hope we can show that to you, that both of these projects are appropriate for the granting of the neg deck. And then, as Pete said, we also put in the application to begin negotiations or discussions on a pilot agreement. And we, again, separate actions for each of these projects to move forward. I guess I really don't want to go on and take too much of your time because I know I've been busy agenda. So I guess if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time.
The reason we're treating these as 2 separate entities is why? 2 separate projects?
So they're legally 2 separate entities.
So why do we want to do that?
So legally, there's 2 separate entities here. There's Lodi PV and Lodi 2 PV. And that's in large part, and Peter or Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's in large part because of the way New York State regulates solar, and specifically community solar projects are limited to 5 megawatts or less.
Correct. Correct. So yeah, no, that's exactly it. So these are community solar projects. The max on those are 5 megawatts, which is why, as Andy explained, they have 2 separate interconnection points. So as these are community solar projects, there will be the opportunity for residences, business owners to subscribe to get, some discounted electricity off these projects. So that's the reason why they are 2 separate 5 megawatt projects, because they are in fact community solar sites.
Municipalities or anybody in any of these projects ever get that? I don't think I've seen us put that.
Subscribe to the community solar, you mean?
To get a better pricing because you're putting up a solar
So
project
that's
in a particular area.
up to individual homeowners, but when we've done public hearings on these or other projects, we have had people that have attended those that have, gone and opted in. So, yeah, this is a weird one. I know it seems strange. Our IDA hasn't personally yet considered these. There are other counties, so this is not an uncommon practice. You can sort of thank New York State bureaucracy and rules and regs for this weirdness that is happening right now. But for our purposes, they're more or less identical projects that we need to consider, separately. So they would each have their own cost-benefit analysis. We would have to do project evaluation of them as separate facilities. In order to do that, the pilot agreements would be separate from each other.
I do want, sorry, one other quick note, and I apologize for not clarifying this up front. So these are obviously on one current existing tax parcel. They will be, and we are in the process of surveying this, they will need to be split. So each project at the end of the day will be on its own tax parcel. The Stacks are still going to own it. We're just going to lease the area that's physically taken up by the solar project. So at the end of the day, we'll deal with the town of Lodi to make sure that they approve the subdivision map once our surveyor draws it up, and then obviously we'll ultimately file with Seneca County, and then new tax parcels will be created, down the road prior to construction, just to kind of clear that point up.
So this is Bruce Murray. I'm a member of the IDA here. I'm a resident of Lodi. I know the site pretty well. 414 is a fairly significant, it's the primary thoroughfare up and down the east side of Seneca Lake, which is a tourist destination during the during the peak season. What's the setback from 414 of the actual physical panels?
Hey, do you have that number handy by any chance? I'm pulling up the plan.
I do. I'm just making it big enough so I can see it. Yeah, give me just a second. It's on one of these.
There isn't any differential
Excuse me, I have so
setback
many drawings
for the
open at
solar
the moment.
project than any other type of building, is there or not?
What's that?
So there isn't any
Where?
separate setback requirements for a, say, solar project than anything else
No, look,
that I'm aware of?
Lodi has no zoning.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a,
Then it'll just be your setback from the road.
Right, so-
Depends on locality.
Yeah.
Yeah, excuse me, but so the answer is that it is averaging about 65 feet from the edge of right of way, and about 50 feet at its narrowest. The Mets fence line, the equipment is going to be another 15 feet away.
so that's really,
Close.
yeah. So have you spent any time in that area during, say, June, July, or August?
Yeah,
I have not, no.
We've had consultants and some members of our team doing environmental surveys out there throughout the beginning of this year, as well as last summer, fall. So we have done site visits and conducted surveys during those months.
During June, have you done traffic analysis of that stretch of 414 in, say, July or August, October? People, the reason I say is people come to this area as tourists. It's probably the most significant economic growth sector of the county. And one of the reasons people come here is because it has a certain natural beauty that they don't find wherever it is they're living. And, Lodi has no zoning, so it's very clear this is the kind of thing that could go up there, but you're asking the IDA to be the lead on this, and I'm not convinced that the right thing for the IDA to take the lead on. I'd have to look at it harder.
Yeah, no, and just, I guess to answer your question, we have not done any, kind of analysis of the traffic, just to give a little context of the type of traffic that's associated with these projects. Obviously, you know, when the time comes and we're going through our building and electrical permit.
No, I'm not talking about that kind of traffic. That's construction traffic, that's short term, it's limited in
No,
duration.
right.
I'm talking about the traffic of the tourism traffic on those roads.
Sure.
During those periods.
Which side of the road is this on?
This is
Yeah,
the
no,
east
no,
side.
I hear you.
Yeah, so that's,
It's smack dead in the center.
Yeah, I got a question about the physical location of these panels, because the site seems to me that on the south side of this parcel is another winery, Idle Ridge, instead of a tree line that you're describing. Have you talked with those people at all about the site they're gonna have to the north of them? Because they're right next door.
Yeah, right
that
there.
is, I mean, it's a winery, but there is a tree line between that winery and the existing farmland.
Did you just
No, there
plant that?
isn't. No, there isn't. It's
No, there's
not a screen, not like a serious hedgerow.
No, there's nothing there.
Yeah, I think we can, and again, I guess just to clarify, and I, you know, appreciate obviously all the feedback, and it's this type of feedback that we'll take into consideration and try and design the project so it's as minimally impactful or invasive as possible. So screening is obviously a big thing. You know, we do try to incorporate that as much as we can. We try and take advantage of the existing screening, and then if there's anything additional, you know, in terms of landscaping that we need to do, we certainly try and do that again to make these as tucked away out of sight, out of mind as much as possible. So screening on all sides, you know, the residences, and then to 414 is something that we can definitely look into and, you know, prepare a plan for.
Yeah, it's a little more sensitive an area than you might expect.
Yeah, no, 100%. I completely understand where you're coming from.
Right. So let me just maybe step in here for a second, because there's sort of two pieces. You know, there's the typical IDA incentives piece, and then because there is no zoning in Lodi, and because if we grant incentives, we could be getting involved in the project, there's a need for somebody to be the lead on seeker. So our inducement resolution, as written, does not approve any financial incentives to the project. It does not approve the project to go ahead. It doesn't approve site plans. It allows us to do a cost benefit analysis, a public hearing, and declare ourselves lead agency for seeker. There is still time to review, and the one thing I want to mention, and we don't have to, I mean, we can table this. It's obviously up to whatever the board feels comfortable, but we can, if everybody here is not generally comfortable with the site plans and moving forward on the approval of seeker with the site plans as they stand, we can ask for revisions to those before proceeding with final seeker review of the project. So I just want to.
In some ways, you're in control of it if you're gonna do the seeker, but you're taking on that
Yeah,
responsibility.
But again, understand that for sure, but
Who would have it, who would take it, say if we didn't, who would be deciding that then? County?
Nobody.
Huh?
I mean.
So, I mean, I think in principle, I think these, generally speaking, solar projects are a net positive, you know, in general. I think to say every single solar project deserves and it has a right to be placed wherever it may find a hospitable place, I don't think I go that far. I don't. And so, this happens, it just happens to be incredibly visible place for a very significant part of the economic activity of that part of the county. It's the first I'm hearing of it, and we're sort of tiptoeing forward. I would say let's table it for now, and let's have a longer discussion on it, and see if even there's enough, I think, debate around are all solar projects the same. And I think this might be one that deserves that discussion.
Okay.
Well,
So
I
what
guess-
you're indicating is a desire to altogether table this resolution?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we have one more question. on it.
Yeah.
So, I have a question. Community solar provider, does that mean you sell the electricity directly to customers? Or are you putting in the grid and those customers that want green electricity can check a box?
Yeah, so these, it's a great question. So the actual electricity that's gonna be produced or generated by both systems, that is just fed directly back into the grid, and then it's obviously dispersed wherever it's needed. However, there is an opportunity for folks, again, it could be residences, it could be small business owners, it could also be, you know, a municipality or a school, who don't have actual solar panels on their property, whether it be in their backyard or on their roofs, to subscribe to these projects, and they won't get the electricity fed directly to their respective homes or businesses. However, they will get some savings on
We've
their
bought several
monthly
of these, we've
electricity
done
bill
this.
directly proportional to these projects. So, you know, they'll still get their bill from the utility. It'll have a box, let's say in the top right-hand corner, that'll say Lodi Solar or Lodi 2 Solar, and it'll have the savings attributed from the projects for that given month. That answers your question.
Could I just ask one more question? If, you know, truthfully, I've got many of the same questions that Bruce has. I'm not as concerned whether we delay it or we do it. We still have the right to ask any questions and back out, so either one's okay with me. I'm just trying to decide, if we don't do the seeker, who would do that here?
So there's other involved agencies, I don't remember what they are within the
So I'm trying to
application.
think for down that way. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
there's a process that's involved that no one wants to be the lead agency, and that's in the secret regulations.
Yeah, okay, this is Peter again. The only, you know, usually, the municipality, whether it's the town board, the planning board, handles, the lead agency on seeker. I would say in 70% of the cases with our community solar project, that is the case where the host municipality is the lead agency. However, again, in a situation like this, we have run into it in other counties, you know, in Chautauqua, Oswego, the town does not have any specific solar, or not even solar, but zoning regulation, and they explicitly ask, you know, another agency, typically the IDA, to be the lead agent on seeker. So again, that's
We've done that before, so it's not that we don't do this, I just.
It's from the municipality.
Correct. We've done this before. We've been lead agency on the New York Lodi solar project, actually, that Delaware River Solar did. But obviously with lead agency does come maybe a little more responsibility.
That's why I was
in
deciding, would
reviewing
there be
these
a
site
municipality
plans.
down there that would say, no, based on what you're saying, we wanna make that decision, or I don't wanna tell somebody else you're out, because we wanna step into that role.
Yeah,
But I don't
Not that
know.
I'm aware of. I mean,
If
this
we-
is sort of a consequence of the absence of a zoning.
Correct, and if we
Yeah.
did not want to be, if the board does not want to serve as lead agency, you know, I mean, we can make that revision, but our projects still require us, when we
Yeah.
do our closing documents, we still need somebody to be lead agency
Okay.
on seeker, which would then mean, and I'd have to go back and look specifically at the part one again, but a lot of the involved agencies were like state level agencies, which I think typically would not step in this case, so it does make things a little more complicated if
I
that
mean,
were the
in
case.
some ways, if there's concerns here, there's not the right one to step in, we're maybe better off asking these questions, because you know the sensitivity, then who else might end up with it, but I don't know who that would be in this case, so.
Yeah, because I guess what I would propose to do, it's a little, I mean, it's sort of, start the process. What'll happen is, if we go and approve the inducement resolution, we're just approving
We're gonna start
the next step.
process. Yeah, I know.
This ends up being, the seeker review, either us or somebody else. It also ends up being a public hearing, and essentially getting the public input that was not part of the original design. I guess if we didn't go through this and tabled it, then what?
We do it next time, after a few conversations. I haven't had a conversation with Kyle Barnhart yet about this. I can call him up and say, let's go through it.
Well, essentially, that doesn't
We
preclude.
can
any-
still do it.
No, just say, let's give it, let me
But I
just
mean,
do it.
essentially, we're not making any commitment
If you say we're gonna go forward and agree to look at this.
to agree to look at this.
What time frame do we have to do that by? In other words, I just, there's some of these that are pretty standard, this is one you wanna take some, a look at.
Well, it's putting us in a position
Right,
on
absolutely.
a fairly significant matter of a planning board or a
Mhm.
zoning board.
Not
And-
having that,
and, well, it's a slippery slope. And it's my
My
concern.
suggestion would be, we have some discussion about so that
This just isn't your standard one, two, three, different, which way we proceed with it, we can still address the issues. I don't have a problem either way we go.
It's one of those
Well, what
things,
is the time frame?
like you've
If I can
said,
answer that one question though. If we say we're gonna induce this, which means we're gonna take a look at it, and we can turn it down, we can do whatever we want, what is our time frame for doing that if we have more questions we wanna ask?
I mean, we don't
No,
have
so you-
anything that rushes
Is it like,
us.
once we do this, we've got 30 days? to-
No.
I mean, but, so what you're doing, we'll talk about the secret part separate, but what you're doing essentially is just saying, we have an application that has all the information that is required for the IDA to accept the application, okay? Which is different than approving any of the assistance. You're saying, we accept the application, we're authorizing the scheduling of a public hearing and the performance of the cost benefit analysis based on the information in the application. So you can do that. This resolution, though, sets the IDA up to act as the lead agency, so if you're not comfortable with that, then we should have a discussion about.
So in the absence of a comprehensive plan or a planning board to go through a zoning board, and the public comment comes back that it's a negative review from the public, who make that determination whether that moves forward?
This
We
board.
would.
We would hear the comments.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
you
you
would
would make
hear
the-
comments regardless.
Right.
You would make the decision, just keep in mind what you're doing. I mean, your role is to decide whether you're gonna provide the financial assistance that's
Right.
been applied for. So you would ultimately be deciding whether, that's a decision you'd be making, okay?
But if you accept doing the CEQA and responsibility for that, then you're also the entity that's deciding, yeah, this has an environmental issue, concerns from how this is, affecting traffic, whatever, that we then step into that role of making that decision.
That's a discussion we should have.
Yeah, so that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Right. So, based on what I'm hearing from everybody, it sounds like there needs to be more discussion about this lead agency on seeker. And that because of the way the resolution is worded, because of the way that everything would have to move through, maybe we ought to table this and have
I think so,
further
because you can't do one
discussions.
without the other anyhow, so it doesn't do you that much good to approve the one and not the other if you don't know what that's gonna be, because we can't approve ours without some kind of review process on the seeker side.
Understandable.
And we may or may not wanna get involved in that at all, and that's something we need to talk about further, so you might as well talk about the whole thing at the same time, in my opinion. I can live with the other one, but you might as well put it off until you get some answers.
I guess, do we have a motion?
So then I guess, hearing that, I guess before the board, is a motion to table both the inducement resolutions for Lodi 1 and 2 for further discussions, especially on the role of seeker.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Let's see, roll?
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Kine?
Yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Mr. Bruce Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Convery?
Yes.
Mr. Brownell? Mr. Shipley? Mr. Guthrie, absent, motion carried.
Okay, so Peter and Andy, we will follow up with you separately with additional questions or thoughts once we've had a chance to wrap our heads around how we think we'd like to proceed on this.
And again, really appreciate everyone's time, and if anything further, I think, also, just as a point of clarification, we've already begun the process coordinating with a lot of the agencies, that will be involved in a seeker review, anyways, DEC, SHPO, on a federal level, the Army Corps. So as we get more, as the information comes in, responding to our, coordination or consultation with those agencies, we can certainly provide them to you, Sarah, and obviously the members of the board. If there's any further communication, I think I did catch you, it wasn't like with Mr. Murray, I forget who was gonna reach out to Kyle Barnhart. If there's any further communication that's needed with the municipality, I know as Andy mentioned, we've already kind of begun those discussions. We would be more than happy to set up a call or even meet in person, just to kind of make sure everyone's on the same page about the process and who's going to do what. So just want to, again, thank everyone for the time. I know these are sensitive projects, and we just want to make sure that it's a community or mutually beneficial project. So.
Thank you both. We'll be in touch.
Okay, thanks everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, we'll follow up on that.
Next item was the update from the Seneca County Chamber of Commerce. Jeff isn't here. I don't know if anyone else has anything that would be appropriate. No. If not, next item, would be an update from the County Board of Supervisors.
Sure, between county manager and Supervisor Carty, maybe you can both give us some kind of update, anything that might be going on.
Sure, broadband is one thing, but.
Yeah, that's going to leave on that if you want to talk about that, and then I can throw a couple of things.
Yeah, we'll probably be signing the contract today or tomorrow, to do a design for 5 towns in Seneca County, to figure out what it will take to get broadband to everybody. That way, when another grant opportunity comes for the county, we are ready to go. We've not been ready thus far.
Can I ask you a question about
Sure.
that? I know we talk about broadband for the houses, but as a farmer, we need broadband to run our equipment, because our tractors run off the internet to go straight, and we all want to go straight. But it doesn't do us any good to have a hard wire run out there along the road with a pole stuck in the middle of our driveways like they did back during COVID on Cemetery Road. We need towers. So if you could please look at that. We need towers. We can't use hard wires. They don't do us a bit of good. We need towers. So just keep it in mind.
Yeah.
And how, was it 5 towns in the county or all towns?
5 towns in the county, Waterloo, Seneca Falls, Junius, Varick, and Fayette. Not Lodi, because, and I think you're probably gonna ask that question.
Yeah.
But actually,
Kyle?
no, not Kyle, what's the, broadband company that is
OTTC?
expanding in Lodi? They said they were going to expand and cover everybody in Lodi, so we didn't have to get involved.
With a tower? I want Ernest.
Who was that?
I want Ralph's tower.
That's good. Well,
Because I gotta go straight too.
No, because, yeah, Kyle was like, okay,
I want to clarify that, just take a little step back.
yeah.
It's not the normal course of business. I refer to them as memorializing resolutions. They did it a lot. It was used to be a Monroe County legislator. It's like you're voting to take a position. You're not really voting on an action. So we did do what I call, the board did, a memorializing resolution several months ago, knowing that it may have to be a phased approach rather than doing all 10 towns at once. It might have to start with the ones with the greatest. The terms we hear are un and underserved. They're 2 different things. And so the board did pass unanimously a resolution understanding and accepting that this may have to be a phased approach, but that the commitment would be to handle things countywide. And there's ARPA money out there, and broadband is certainly one of the intended purposes for that. I don't know that the meetings we've had, that there was an awareness of the agricultural need / piece of that. So At least I don't recall that, but.
No, but I remember Jeff Trout speaking up and asking about wires.
And you know, I joke about going straight, but there's more to it than that. We use prescriptions to plant, so we put different seed on this foot, we do the next foot, and we need GPS to do all that stuff. Then we also record yields when we're harvesting for not only ourselves for information for down the road, we also need it for the crop insurance we use. Those records are turned automatically over to the crop insurance companies, so there's a lot of stuff. The internet just has a huge farmer demand, so just keep us in mind.
Good time to be
I
brought
can
up,
bring
because
that
we're
up
gonna
with
be
your
having like a
engineering.
kickoff meeting. We have been awaiting kind of the reorganization of the board and the reestablishment of the different special committees, the ARPA committee being one, and it took a little time to work through. So, it's New York State Engineering. They opened their first office in Penn. They've been doing a lot of good work for Yates County. I highly recommend it. So Beth and I are gonna have a kickoff meeting, so we can certainly get that on the table.
I can get together with you and share some of the data we have, but Lodi was lower on the priority list.
Look,
I mean-
we understand that. No argument there. But it's my meeting tonight.
Yeah, so the 5 towns Beth mentioned were Waterloo, Seneca Falls, Junius, Varick, and Fayette.
Yes.
That are having this study done.
Yes, and Tyre is actually the most underserved, unserved town in the county, but I'm taking care of that with my town. I'm in negotiations now, so.
Having a phase-in approach makes sense. There's only so much money to go around and only so much visibility in the future. When is the second phase? Is the second phase identified?
Specifically, I don't think so.
I don't think so. Here's the problem. I mean, the problem is, again, tourism, you rent a Airbnb and the internet doesn't work.
Right.
There is no internet. There's no cell coverage. I mean, that's a hindrance to the experience of the people that come and visit. That's a very simple thing, which
Agreed.
everyone knows, and it'd be great,
I'm sure
it'd be great to be on the
this day and age with
schedule.
People working from home, being able to work from home.
Just so we could put it on the schedule.
Yeah.
So
Do you
one of
have it where your winery is, or no?
When I built my facility, I received an estimate of $500,000 to install broadband to my facility. And so I don't normally call the Public Service Commission, because this was Time Warner at the time. So, there was, at the time, a lot of, gouging going on. I don't know, it's incredibly expensive to run fiber. It's not cheap, but, that's what the price tag was for a new connection, 900 feet away from an existing connection. So I don't know what the real situation. You worked on it, and everything you're doing is great. I'm just saying, we're just as much in need.
Sounds like you might have a couple volunteers to come and speak to the broadband committee.
Literally,
The question is where the
$500,000 install.
underserved numbers come from, because on our leg, the tallest grain leg, we have a tower or antenna on that we're getting service from. We generate our own internet. Those people are selling off of that. We don't pay anything for ours, but they're selling off that to people within direct line of sight to it. I know the Doug Fryer's farm.
Is that wireless?
It's
Community
wireless,
broadband
yep.
or whatever?
Doug Fryer has the same system over by the Fayette Water Tower, there on the hill. They're generating from that one, and I know it's the same deal. They got it for nothing, and they're selling to customers from line of sight. There's things like that, and I don't know whether those people actually show up. I question sometimes about who's underserved and who's not underserved. There's more internet out there than we know about.
I mean, in my town, I contacted that company to find out if they could come. They can't, there's no line of sight in my town. I don't have a tower, I have no
That's the
thing
problem. You need to
it
put
on.
that chain in.
But I was a little discouraged when I talked to the company, when I said, how do you actually get business? Like, I didn't know you existed. I found your name because I was on the SEC website trying to figure out who in my town had it, who didn't, and what their data stated. And he said, well, we're really a small business. We're just kind of word of mouth. That kind of was like, that doesn't say long term to me. Word of mouth is how you're getting yourself out. No. I don't know. I don't want to look at that in 10 years. Are you still going to be around? I don't know. They're not.
Yeah, Yeah, well, it's
Good
funny we're
question.
having this discussion because even like, I don't know, it was a couple months ago, you know, we've got quite a few tenants now in Deer Run Industrial Park. Well, turns out there isn't cable, internet, or anything run along that street to those businesses. They get internet, or their best option, because Dave looked into this extensively for us, on their behalf, their best option is really the community broadband. They have one of their little things right on the water tower there, which is great, but it's also like, I mean, that industrial park, granted it was, you know, over 20 years ago or whatever it was put in, thoughts were maybe not as high a priority on the internet side, but it's just like mind-boggling to think, you know, and then Dave had conversations with like Spectrum and Verizon of, you know, there's enough companies there, like you guys should think about just running, you know, running a line down the street. It'd be worth your while, but it's one of those things that you don't even realize that there are places like that that are.
I have 5G up on the mountain, on a single top of the mountain where I got a place up there, but I don't have that here. How did they had some program that went through, I literally have it up there in the middle of nowhere, and we don't have it here, so I don't know how it gets decided.
They know who lived there.
I don't tell very many people I have it. I don't go there to keep getting it.
Other updates from the county? Anything else?
I think everybody may be aware, the Board of Supervisors did recently pass a resolution seeking home rule in the state legislature to increase the hotel motel tax from 3% to 5%. It's something that the board has been interested in for a number of years and has not been successful in getting it sponsored in both the Senate and the Assembly. My understanding is that Senator Tom O'Mara has expressed a willingness to introduce that in the Senate. And Assembly member, as everybody knows, two Assembly members, I believe that they're both in support of sponsoring it. So I'm not exactly sure where things stand in Albany. I haven't looked, but I also haven't seen like bills introduced that have the numbers assigned and stuff. But that's something else kind of contemporary and coming up.
And Mitch, Pam introduced that before, right?
No.
She never did, she refused to do that.
Yeah, there was one that she did sponsor. It had to do with broadening the scope of what the hotel motel tax revenue could be used for, broaden it into infrastructure, and things like that.
Thank you.
Mitch is presenting next week, state of the county.
Okay.
That they want to-
Coffee and conversation.
Yes.
Second one.
Yeah.
I was at the first one.
Okay, all right.
It was great.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. I'm coming back. I'm coming back.
Well, I guess one other thing you may have heard or seen, but there is a search underway for a new county manager also. So,
Thank you for your time here.
yeah, I enjoy it. You know, not running away, prepared to stay with here. You know, we'll keep you posted on kind of how that holds out. Chairman Mike Enzel is leading the effort, and there may be an overlap period of some kind. And if the search doesn't find the right candidate, I will stick around. But I'm ready.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. Any other business? Okay. So I request a motion to enter into executive session under Public Officers Law, Article 7, Section 105, to discuss the financial, credit, or employment history of a particular corporation or matters leading to the approval of the contract for a particular corporation. Beth, you're welcome to stay if you want.
Oh, okay.
So, motion?
So moved.
Second?
Sure, when you can get forward.
Second. Between the two. All in favor?
Aye.
So we're in executive session?
I'll make a motion.
Well,
that we-
let's just
Whoa,
second.
hold
You're
on.
out.
We gotta
You're
go
out.
live.
Going back.
Come on, Dick. And therefore, I request a motion to approve the current Willard RFP for the highest and best use study
Through MRB,
through MRD.
so I'll make that motion.
Second.
Do
So-
we want to have any discussion first and make any acknowledgements of anything now that we're live and in public?
You know, I think we,
So basically, just to take a 1 minute sort of to review, is the IDA back in November started the process, going out for multiple companies to submit RFPs for this highest and best use study for Willard. 5 companies replied. We interviewed 3 as a combination IDA governance committee along with the county. We interviewed the 3, we selected 1 MRB group. We went back with some additional comments and ended up with a revised proposal. And this motion is to approve that revised proposal for a total of $164,067. So motion to approve, right? Second. So Kelly?
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Kine?
yes.
Mr. Lot?
Yes.
Mr. Bruce Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Tom Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Brunel, Mr. Guthrie, and Mr. Shipley, absent, motion carried.
So any other business? Hearing none, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So we're out of executive session and out of the Seneca County IDA. The last item we have is the Seneca County Funding Corporation.
So you guys don't have to stay, you're free to go.
So
Bruce
just
and Steve
Bruce
have
and
to stay.
myself, which should be a fairly
Good luck.
quick.
Good luck.
So,
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, have a good.
well, first item on the agenda is in our packet, we received meeting minutes from our last meeting on February 2nd. Were any changes, corrections, modifications?
None?
Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is the audit and management letter.
Okay, so going back, this is similar to the IDA and the EDC. The audit went well. There were no issues found by the auditors. Everything came back clean. They did mention in the communications letter one thing that gets mentioned every year, which is whether or not the funding corp should do a time study to determine if it should be paying staff and contractors out of its own budget. We've always responded something along the lines of it's just not worth it, there's not enough activity. That would be our proposed response again this year, but that was really the only thing of note to go through the actual audit briefly. The funding corp's net position at the end of 2022 was $50,280. Again, there's really no activity on the revenue side, it's all on the expense side. There's annually just about, just under $3,000 that gets spent on professional services, which is really just the audit. So you'll see 2021, our net position year end was $53,115. 2022 it was $50,280. I think that's really all there is to say unless anyone has questions.
Yeah.
No question.
No activity, no planned activity. A nice clean audit. So, motion to approve the audit and management letter.
So moved.
I'll second. See Kelly?
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mr. Kernan absent, motion carried.
Oh, I wonder if roll call, there's two people.
Next item is the ABO measurement report.
Okay, so on this one, the Funding Corp measurement that we use is the issuance of tax exempt bonds. That's really what the Funding Corp is here to do. There has been no new bonds issued during 2022, so that's what the report says. And then you'll see on the backside, the governance committee certification, you know, that the board understands the public authority's mission, that they, you know, meet, that kind of thing. Any questions about that?
No, looks good. So motion to approve the measurement report?
I move that we approve the ABO measurement report.
Okay.
As submitted.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Any other business?
No, and we don't do the long-term forecast for this because essentially we've talked about it in the audit. We have about 3,000 in expenses every year. We can obviously keep going for a few years, but there really isn't any activity going on.
No executive session, so motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We're done with our